the stretch. This is the home straight in the Arc de Triomphe.
She's starting to power away. She might be the new LA France.
And she's kicked away. Trev is tremendous. This is the home straight in the Arc de Triomphe.
Here comes Dancing Rain, making great strides on the outside.
It's Sindar in front. This is the home straight in the Arc de Triomphe.
This is Swarmotor. This is Swarmotor, who has taken a Garfield apart.
Perfection in equine form. See the stars racing away. A horse of a lifetime. This is special.
Courtland Simmons with you here at the CS Racing Report with the Prix d'Arc de Triomphe Picks and Preview podcast. Let's quickly swing into the post positions and the field for this classic at Longchamp in Paris. When looking at the pose positions, Enable drew well coming out of the number 5. We all know that the major X factor in this arc is the surface. It, of course, prompted Aidan O'Brien on draw or post position day to withdraw Love from consideration. In this race, she had lost 3 times on soft going, and with the conditions apparently deteriorating, it just didn't seem to be the right fit yet. On the other hand, Mogul, who's coming out of post number 3 at 11-1 after initially being 12-1 in the market and then going to 20-1, back to 11-1, has no form on soft going, but Aidan O'Brien is going to take the chance that maybe he can handle it on first run versus running Love in there as well, maybe being able to overcome her past issues. So in the end, if Mogul doesn't run well, it would be deemed pointless, just as if not more pointless, that he ran the horse over going that he had no experience in, and then Love being able to maybe overcome her past troubles. But we'll see how that factors, and certainly he is going to be an influence on people's wagering. Satsas, who is 3rd in the arc over a soft ground, heavy going in 2019, has not looked good this year, 4th in the Irish Champion Stakes, but he's 8-1. He's moved from 12 to 8-1. A lot of people believe off the arc in 2019 that he will do a little better on this ground than others. Enable, again, in post number 5, way to Paris, like Enable, is the fine wine horse in here, not supposedly being able to compete at this level in a race like the arc at age 7, but he's 25-1, has a little bit of soft form, has dropped from 66. Persian King is really, I think, an X factor. He's got class. He's proven himself on heavy going or soft to heavy going, but he hasn't been any further than 10 furlongs, and he's primarily been focused on miler type races. So he's an X factor. Can he jump up to 12 furlongs and be a contender? A lot of folks may think probably not the case. And then, of course, when you go down the line, Sovereign is he's won on soft at 2 years old, but he didn't look good in his last start. He's dropped from 100 to 66-1. Japan is another X factor. 4th in the Arc de Triomphe when he seemingly was in great form as a 3-year-old. Comes off of 5th in the Irish Champion Stakes. He's had some foot issues, according to Aidan O'Brien. If you believe that those have bypassed, and that based on his 4th place in the Arc in 2019, that he can come back to form and that he'll do a little better than others on this surface, then at 14-1 versus the 33-1 that was his earlier number, you're going to believe that he can, hit the board at the least for minor placings. Deidre, of course, has had, soft ground wins in Japan, has not looked good, has not won since the Nassau Stakes. Stradivarius would prefer faster ground when you look at his resume, but he has won 3 times on going that wasn't perfect. Obviously, he can stay, but is he quick enough against this group of horses versus his Cup opposition where he became legend? So that's going to be something where you're going to have to figure that out in the midst of him being dropped from 16-1 during the preview pod number 1 after the ARC trials to 13-2. He's actually almost the co-favorite in here along with Enable. Serpentine, he was 4th in the Grand Prix de Paris. He's dropped from 25. His odds have dropped in half from 25 to 16 to 12. He's obviously going to be forwardly placed. He didn't quite get the lead in his first run since the Epsom Derby in the Grand Prix de Paris, but he probably will be forward, and then we'll see if he can handle the surface. He's got, a tiny bit of soft form, but again, this is a whole different monster, an animal that these runners are going to have to deal with. Then when you look at that in totality versus or in conjunction with your picks, let's take a look at some numbers that seemingly are going to probably, if they haven't already come to mind, or are going to present themselves. Obviously, in terms of looking at certain horses, the 14, Stradivarius, the 4, Sot Sass, these are all wise guy horses. Number 6, Way to Paris, along with the 3, Mogul, with no soft course form, and the number 10, Sovereign, are wild cards in addition to the 11, Japan, and the 15, Serpentine. Those are kind of wild card horses in a lot of people's eyes. And I think that, out of these, maybe the number 4, Sot Sass may be a little bit wiser choice. Then what I think are numbers that are probably, in addition to Sot Sass, are strong numbers that you could use would be the 9, the 2, the 1, and the 7, and that would be Gold Trip. Rabila, the filly, I think she could run well in here. Her Prix Vermeil was pretty good. In Swoop, who was the runner-up in the Grand Prix de Paris, and the number 7, Persian King, the X Factor, along with the 3, Mogul on the outside of those horses. You can either put him in as a wild card or a stronger supplemental pick. Or an alternative if you're trying to beat Enable in here. Another obvious alliteration in terms of picks, and this is one of the ones that I think could be a stronger or equally as good a play, is the 4, the 14, the 5, and the 2. That would be Sot Sass, the 14, Stradivarius, Enable finishing 3rd, and then number 2, the filly Rabila finishing 4th. That 4, 14, 5, 2. Another one that I think could be of the mindset would be the number 1, In Swoop, the 5, Enable, the number 2, Rabila again, hitting the board, maybe the 14, Stradivarius, who in the minds of many, most people believe, would do well to finish 4th, and then maybe the number 9, Gold Trip. 1, 5, 2, 14, or 1, 5, 2, and 9. That could be the one. The one I landed on in the end as far as an upset special was the number 3 or the number 7. That would be Mogul, going on untried and uncharted waters. Literally, it's going to be probably a little bit of a bog out there. The number 3 or the number 7, Persian King. The 5, Enable. The number 1, In Swoop. The number 4, Sot Sass. So it would be either the 3 or the 7, the 5, the 1, and the 4. And then possibly, once again, you use Stradivarius as your 4th place horse. And there are other horses that obviously you might want to plug in. And then in the end, drum roll please, my final pick for this Arc de Triomphe is the champion Enable, going into the history books to win a 3rd arc. The number 3, maybe Mogul, finishing 2nd. Then the 14, Stradivarius, and then the number 1, In Swoop. 5, 3, 14, 1. I think it could easily be the 5, the 4. And then maybe the 1, and then you can put in either the 14 Stradivarius, or you can maybe use Rabila or horses of that like. But as a win pick, I am going with Enable, going with the chalk a little bit here. It's going to be tough, though, because the odds are against her. But I think that one of the things that I think is key for Enable to win this race is it was thought that pulling the trigger that one last time in her attempt to win the 3rd straight arc at the 3 furlongs, especially over heavy going in 2019, may have cost her. She almost won the race anyway, so it's easy to kind of Monday morning quarterback and say in hindsight that was a mistake. I will say, though, prior to the reins coming in, that the best strategy for Enable against this opposition would be to wait a little bit longer to pull the trigger. So I think for Frankie Dettori, I think that once he incenses if his horse is going well and the others are struggling, that you wait as long as possible to make absolutely sure, maybe even wait longer than you have to go ahead and set sail and send her to the finish and hopefully end up in the winner's circle. I think that tactic, that slight alteration, will be the difference between Enable being able to win this race or not. In my view, again, it'll be very, very interesting to see if she can get over the going, because she does have more form. If you look at her Breeders' Cup Turf, the Epsom Oaks, and the King George, her first of 3 King Georges, in addition to a little bit of rain in her 2nd or her 3rd record-breaking King George. She has the ability to run on heavy going, but this is going to be, again, a tough run. It's when she decides to be sent is going to be the key. I would say that waiting until the last possible moment is going to serve her best. Hence, that's why she's my final pick. I think Frankie Dettori is going to definitely be smart about this, but it is going to be tough. We're going to certainly find out the outcome and cover it in the post recap right here on the CS Racing Report.
There's the cream beginning to rise to the top as they approach the home turn in the arc. Enable angles out and cruises up. The keyboard on